What if I told you that in 1947, a young Bedouin shepherd threw a rock into a cave near the Dead Sea and accidentally opened a door that should have stayed closed forever? Inside those caves were the most important ancient documents ever discovered. But buried among the holy texts was something far more dangerous. Something the ancient writers tried to hide. Something that has driven researchers mad, ruined lives, and still refuses to be fully explained. This is the wild, unsolved mystery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It began with a simple accident. A boy chasing a lost goat threw a stone into a cave and heard the sound of breaking pottery. What he found were clay jars filled with ancient scrolls, some over 2,000 years old. Within a few years, 11 caves yielded thousands of fragments. Biblical texts older than any we had ever seen. And other writings that didn't match anything in the Bible. Writings about angels of darkness, wars between light and shadow, and a mysterious teacher of righteousness who seemed to know the future. Most of the scrolls were carefully studied and published, but some fragments were locked away. Researchers whispered about texts that described beings who walked among humans and were not human. Texts that spoke of a final battle not between good and evil, but between two ancient forces that had been fighting long before humanity existed. One scroll, known only by a code name, was said to contain a list of names, not of people who lived 2,000 years ago, but of people who would live in the future, including names that match modern researchers who later studied the scrolls and then disappeared. Strange things began happening to the people who handled the most sensitive fragments. One scholar who spent years translating a particular text died suddenly of a brain hemorrhage. Another went completely mad and claimed the words on the scroll were rearranging themselves when he looked away. A third researcher vanished from his hotel room in Jerusalem. His notes were found open on the desk, ending mid-sentence with the words, "They are not dead, they are waiting." The caves themselves seemed to reject further exploration. Workers reported hearing whispers in languages no one recognized. Equipment failed for no reason. And in one documented case, a camera recorded movement inside an empty cave, a tall, thin figure that vanished when the light was turned on. Then there's the copper scrolls, the most mysterious of all. Unlike the others written on parchment, this one was engraved on pure copper. It lists dozens of hidden treasures buried across the desert, and something else. Something the translators called the greatest treasure of all. But the final lines of the scroll are deliberately damaged. Some believe it describes not gold or silver, but a sealed chamber containing something alive. Something the ancient writers buried so deep that no one would ever find it again. To this day, key questions remain unsolved. Who really wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls? Why were some texts hidden so carefully? Why do certain fragments still refuse to be fully translated? And why do people who dig too deep into the darkest parts of the collection often meet tragic ends? Some researchers believe the scrolls contain a warning. A message from an ancient group that knew something about the true nature of reality, something so dangerous they tried to bury it with their own bones. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not just religious texts. They are a locked door. And every time we try to open it a little further, something on the other side seems to notice. The next time you hear about a new discovery from the caves, ask yourself, are we uncovering history? Or are we waking something that has been sleeping for 2,000 years? The end. Drop your thoughts below. Do you believe the Dead Sea Scrolls hide something far darker than history admits? Would you read a scroll that was never meant to be opened? Subscribe to Random Vibe Spark for more insane hidden history, wild ancient mysteries, and reality-bending stories that will blow your mind.